Good to have you with us here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. What else would you expect? Total disarray is what the cables are saying. They just can't figure any of this out. Why did McCarthy do this? Who's going to be the next speaker? And this is just the way it is. We just can't believe it. What do you mean you can't believe it? This is easy to figure out. And no one brought this up yesterday. I was waiting for it. I probably watched more news yesterday than I have in a long time. You want to get to the root of the problem as to what is going on in Washington. Everything is about power. And one thing about the Republicans, when they have power, they know how to use it. They will cut taxes, they will deregulate, and they won't pay attention to anybody. And when they don't have power, they will obstruct. They will filibuster in the Senate. They'll do anything to get their way. But they have so much power that is protected power. And that protected power comes from all of the gerrymandering that they have done in the House. The Republicans aren't concerned about losing the House. Anyone who was concerned about political power would not be working like this in Washington. But you see, the Republicans can go off the rails constantly because they know there's no ramification. That they have gerrymandered themselves, socially engineered themselves into power, and no matter how they act or how whatever they do, or even in their own caucus how dysfunctional it is, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They're always going to have the power. And the root of this problem is gerrymandering. They're like a little child that is undisciplined. The kid's going to go off and do whatever the hell he wants to do because he knows there's no ramifications. There are no ramifications when it comes to power. So we sit here and say, well, gosh, the way the Republicans have handled the shutdown cost us $25 billion. We'll get them at the polls. Really? And now that the Republicans are in disarray in the House, they don't know who the hell the speaker is going to be, and they've obstructed and done everything else and come up with votes against health care, and now they're attacking Planned Parenthood. Don't worry, we'll get them at the ballot box. Really? The Republicans know you can't get them at the ballot box. They know they can do whatever the hell they want to do because they have socially engineered districts in this country to make sure that they are going to stay in power. And that's why we are where we are. Now, it is so crazy with this protected power that they have. People like Darrell Issa thinks that he should be one of the most powerful people in the United States government. Listen to this.
The fact is that, yes, I think that I can be potentially a candidate, but at the same time, I agree with the vast majority of members. I think that we need a Paul Ryan, or we need somebody who is A, experienced, B, has been a committee chairman, or something other than just up through the leadership ranks. We very definitely need to pick our fights carefully.
This whatever hell is going on in Washington gives a platform to the crazy and the isolationists like Darrell Issa. And there's never been a committee against the Democrats that's taken place that he didn't like. Now, let me give you some reason. How about Alan Grayson, who was with us yesterday, who brought forth the ethics complaint against McCarthy? He says this gentleman should be the Speaker of the House.
My guess is that Jim McDermott is going to be the next Speaker of the House because he's a psychiatrist. You're in a large psychiatric ward, and that's the skill set you need right now to run the House.
So I want to talk to the next Speaker of the House, Jim McDermott. Congressman, good to have you with us today.
Good morning, Ed. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Use all your professional skills and reel this one in for us.
Well, while we're laughing and having a good time here, it really is awful to consider what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
You've got a situation where you have a place in such disarray that nobody trusts anybody, and everyone thinks that they are entitled to run the place.
Yeah.
And this is the most dysfunctional. Many of us have been saying this all along, but, people say, well, that's just Democrats talking. But, in fact, what you have is a number of people who do not understand or do not care to understand how government runs. And that makes for a very, very dangerous kind of situation, because you've got a situation then where you've got people who are in charge who simply are unwilling, or you have people who are not in charge who are simply unwilling to compromise.
Well,
you could have the House run if John Boehner would come over to Nancy and say, Nancy, I need X number of votes. What do you need in the bill? And we'll pass the bill. I used to do that in the legislature.
Sure.
Many of us have done that.
Sure. Congressman, what about the protected power? They know they can do this and not lose the majority in the House. Your thoughts?
Well, certainly that's the theory under which the redistricting is done. But, Ed, if you look back in history in 1928 and 1932, the American people turned the tables upside down when they got fed up with what was going on. And they, in fact, elected Franklin Delano Roosevelt and gave him a huge number of votes in the Congress. So nothing is for sure here forever. And I think that one of the things that they don't understand is that the people, in spite of how the lines are drawn, people are going to begin to vote their own interests. Mm-hmm. And that's what they've miscalculated on, I think. The people aren't going to put up with this forever. Okay.
Your thoughts. Why did McCarthy do this? Is there a skeleton in the closet? Is there a backstory, a real story that's not being told? What can you tell us?
I don't think anybody knows the real answer to that, but I think he made a smart political decision. He decided that this thing is unwinnable. I'm going to get in there, and I'm going to have the same problem that John Boehner did, and I'm just not going to put myself through it. I think that there are times when people in power are in office discover that, what glitters is not always gold, and grabbing that is going to turn out to be a red-hot iron, and I don't want it. And I think that's really what you saw yesterday, was a guy saying to himself, hey, look, this could turn out to be a really bad deal, and I don't want it. I think there may be other things that will, people will find out, but I don't know any of that. I don't think anybody does.
Well, it was kind of like water off a duck's back to him. I mean, he said, well, I'm still going to be House Majority Leader. It's, in other words, his world's not going to be disrupted at all. I mean, and that's kind of how I took that. And
I think he may have overestimated that as well. I mean, if the caucus comes together around somebody dominated with the rules that the people have been putting forward and demanding that they get from the new leadership. I mean, Daniel Webster got that endorsement because he essentially said, I won't lead the place. I'll just let you guys do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And when you do that at Speaker, you are ultimately going to have such chaos that I don't think anybody knows what will happen in the next election.
Is there a chance that Boehner would be forced to stay on? I mean, that no one comes forward? Of course, the news last night was that Paul Ryan has cleared his schedule, canceled fundraisers. Speculation is that he is going to do it, and we all know what he's about.
Well, everybody wants to think that there's a savior somewhere out there. I don't know that Paul's that crazy, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I disagree with him politically, but I like him and I recognize he's a decent human being. And I don't think he really thinks that he can run in and save this situation, because this is a real mess. Yeah. I mean, it is a real mess.
Congressman Jim McDermott, all the best. Appreciate your time. We'll do it again. Thank you.
See you.
You bet. This is Ed Schultz, News and Commentary. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, Bio Green Clean, and the iSave team bring you this production. When we come back, Scott Paul, President, Alliance of American Manufacturing, talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Later on, Richard Viguerie, the godfather of the conservative movement, his insights on where the House goes next. Stay with us. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about Bio Green Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, wegoted.com, or go to biogreenclean.com, www.biogreenclean, and order today.
It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
Subscribe to the Ed Schultz podcast today. Simply log on to iTunes, search for Ed Schultz, and click the subscribe button to have the show delivered to your preferred listening device daily, free of charge. Rate and review the podcast to tell us how we're doing. More details at WeGotEd.com.
And good to have you with us here on this Friday edition of Ed Schultz News and Commentary. I invite you to stay on this website, WeGotEd.com, and watch the 7-minute production that we have on what happens when there's a bad trade deal. A lot of people have accessed this video that we produced out of Lorain, Ohio, because of the steel industry and the way the dumping of steel has cost the idling of plants across America, and middle-class families are now getting in the unemployment line. Fact of the matter is that the Trans-Pacific Partnership, if we do this deal, the manufacturing sector is going to get hammered. And there's no doubt that the president seems to be, where he has months to sell this to Congress and to the American people, where only half the country knows about this or even begins to dig into the details. The president is now saying, going from it's a great deal to it's the best possible deal. I see his verbiage changing on this. He knows the opposition is there. This deal can be stopped. There's going to be a 90-day period, and then, of course, the Congress is going to take it up. And in that time, there's going to be a big education process going on. Scott Paul joins us. He's the president, Alliance for American Manufacturing. Scott, good to have you with us.
Ed, great to be with you today.
What's the conversation going to be like in the coming months to stop this deal, to educate the folks?
Well, it's an interesting dynamic already, and you can't ignore the national politics and what's going on in the presidential race and how that figures in to things, along with the race for Speaker of the House and Republicans and a number of the Tea Party types who were skeptical of giving the president any sort of authority as well, and so that plays in. But on the substance, I think there's some important issues, and the president and his team have the luxury of being able to out there saying the deal does this, the deal does that, and we don't have the text. We don't know what it actually does, and we probably won't know for a couple of more weeks. But what I think we do know is that, as you pointed out, manufacturing is going to take a hit. In fact, the only kind of comprehensive economic study that's been done of the possible impact of the TPP, and it was done by pro-free trade economists, shows that services would win big, but heavy manufacturing, light manufacturing, auto manufacturing would get hammered with more imports. In fact, it would be a huge imbalance, and that would be a problem.
No doubt. In fact, our trade deficit skyrocketing after every one of these trade deals. The fact is the service industry doesn't pay as well as the manufacturing sector. So we would have reduced quality of jobs in this country, no question about it. All right, now, the politics of this, as you mentioned, with this battle with the Speaker of the House, the Tea Partiers don't want the Trans-Pacific Partnership because of the sovereignty issues and undercutting and circumventing American law. They also are concerned about jobs as well. 28 Democrats voted for Fast Track, which would rubber stamp the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Now that Hillary Clinton has stepped out with some, I would say, serious reservations, does that change the landscape? Does this presidential race spotlight it in a different way?
Well, it's interesting because I think that It certainly would have been one of the key issues in the CNN debate in Las Vegas on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday night, because there was a big difference between Senator Sanders, Secretary Clinton, and Governor O'Malley on this. Now, now she's going to be in the position of having to defend her various positions on this. Spoke out for it as Secretary of State. She obviously did not negotiate it, Ed, and I think that's a point that people should know. That USTR negotiated and all of that. She pointed out, and we agree with this, and we agree with Senator Sanders and Governor O'Malley on this. Currency is a big issue. And it was not addressed, and that's something that even bleeds over into the Republican side. I mean, Lindsey Graham has that concern. Donald Trump has that concern among others. So it's out there, and I think it will color the presidential debate now in a major way. And look, Donald Trump's going to come out with a policy platform that's going to include a lot of stuff on trade, and I think it's going to, I think that's red meat for a lot of people who have serious concerns about the direction our economy is going and what's happened to the middle class. So I think it behooves the Democratic candidates like Secretary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Governor O'Malley, to talk directly to these issues and to do it in a way that's reflective of progressive values.
The highest polling people in this country, both sides of the aisle, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, they're all against the Trans-Pacific Partnership now. I mean, that should be a message to the American people that there's three people that, if you were betting in Vegas, one of those is probably going to be President of the United States, unless somebody pulls a rabbit out of the hat politically that we haven't seen before. So they're against it. And I think that changes the conversation because this is bigger than any sitting president. And this is about our economy. Now, I want to fast forward to the end of 2016, no matter who's president. There is a provision with China that's going to expire in a trade deal that deals with their acceptance into the World Trade Organization that is going to hit our economy. And I'd like you to take a minute to explain that to us.
It's a big deal, and boy, is it an acronym and going to sound esoteric, but it'll have a dramatic impact on our manufacturing sector. So when China became a part of the World Trade Organization in 2000, one of the deals that was made is that it would be treated as a non-market economy because it is. It's not a market economy. It's run by Beijing until the end of 2016. That means that if there was dumping into our market, and Ed, you covered this in great detail in that story in Lorain, Ohio, that we can put higher tariffs on Chinese products. Now, if China is considered a market economy, in name only, but a market economy, we can't put nearly that level of tariffs on dumped Chinese products coming in. And that means that we will see a huge flood of Chinese imports coming into our market. At the same time, potentially a TPP could be coming to an effect. And I'm really concerned about the impact. But this is just a smell test, too. Does China look like a market economy? No, it's completely run by the state. The steel companies, the aluminum companies, everything. It's run by the state. It's not a market economy, even though President Xi, when he came to Washington, said, you should treat us like a market economy. We deserve that respect. The facts don't bear that out, Ed.
No, they don't.
And they're going to have a devastating impact.
They're going to be dumping $1 billion into their state-sponsored automobile parts manufacturing sector, which is going to undercut jobs in this country. I don't care if you're left, right, blue, green, center. That's a fact. They are subsidizing the auto parts industry, and if the Trans-Pacific Partnership goes through, we are going to see the gutting of jobs in the Rust Belt in this country if we have one left. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. There you have it. Scott Paul, great to visit. Always. We'll do it again.
Ed, thanks so much.
You bet. Scott Paul, President, Alliance for American Manufacturing. Stay with us. Richard Viguerie, the godfather of the conservative movement, gives his insights on where the conservatives in the House are right now, what impact this is going to have on 16, if any. Stay with us. We're right back.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan to the modern makers movement, Manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, President of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
The Ed Schultz Internet broadcast is brought to you by the Ring of Fire radio show. Listen to the Ring of Fire weekends on radio stations across the country. Get more information and the news of the day at ringoffireradio.com.
So I think this story is something that's going to play out for some time. Good to have you back with us on Ed Schultz News and Commentary on this Friday edition. What is going to happen in the House? Are the conservatives going to hold their ground? Are they going to force the way they want the House run? Is it going to remain in disarray? Is there anybody out there that can put it all together? I don't know. And this is very intriguing as to how this is going to play out. So some insights this day from Richard Viguerie, who's been around the conservative movement for some 50 years. He's the godfather of the conservative movement, as I say. He's the chairman of ConservativeHQ.com. Mr. Viguerie, always a pleasure. Good to have you with us.
Good to be with you again, Ed.
Give me a description. What's happening here in the House?
Well, what's happening, Ed, is relatively simple. There's a disconnect between establishment Republicans and the grassroots. The Bible tells us, Lincoln told us, a house divided cannot stand. And today the Republican Party is a house divided between the national Republican leaders and the grassroots. So just a disconnect. About 70% of the voters are at the grassroots, so 30% kind of the establishment, what we call country club Republicans. And we're like the biblical Jews who had to wander through the desert for 40 years until that generation of failed, flawed leaders had passed from the scene. And conservatives are not going to get to the political promised land until we get new leaders.
Okay.
Let me just say, the Democratic Party is ideologically consistently liberal. The Republican Party is not ideologically consistently conservative.
So do the conservatives, in your looking into your crystal ball, do they hold their ground here? Is this their chance to move the party in their direction even further? What do you think?
No, absolutely. They will hold their ground here, and there will have to be accommodations. You cannot just ignore the base of the party. You just can't do that. And, if a house divided cannot stand, then if they want to win in 2016, they've got to figure out how they can unite the party, and it's not united now.
Yesterday at the press conference, McCarthy said that his comments about Benghazi and the special committee may have had an impact on this. Here's his response to the question.
How much did your comments about Benghazi last week play into your decision to step aside today?
Well, that wasn't helpful. I could have said it much better. But this Benghazi committee was only created for one purpose: to find the truth on behalf of the families for the 4 dead Americans.
Mr. Viguerie, was that just a situation he couldn't mop up?
Well, absolutely. It was a stupid statement. It was wrong, and there was just no pulling it back. But it was more than that. That may have been the straw that broke the camel's back. But the Freedom Caucus, and then there's a Liberty Caucus as well in the House, and they have enough votes to deny him the 218 he needed. And if he had won the election that was scheduled for yesterday, he would have done so without receiving 218 votes, and that means when the election was held by the whole House in late October, that he would have had to get votes from Nancy Pelosi, which would make Nancy co-speaker, and that was just unacceptable to him and to the other Republican leaders.
Paul Ryan, is he the next speaker?
You know, he could very well be. I don't know if Paul can unite the party. You can't just continue to have nothing but big government established Republicans in the leadership. And if Paul's the next speaker, he's going to have to deal with bringing conservatives who represent the grassroots into the leadership. Failing that, there'll continue to be turmoil in the Republican House.
Okay. Let's talk national politics. I just get this sense that no one in the Republican Party wants Trump to be where he is right now, out in front of the rest of the candidates, that he has tapped into some kind of a grassroots effort of his own, a populist tone. He's even standing with the Democrats on trade. He has the same position on trade as Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton now. And the kind of vernacular and barb throwing that's going back and forth was on display yesterday in Las Vegas when he had this to say about Carly Fiorina.
Then I attacked Carly's record because her record running a business is a disaster. But she's got that good pitter-patter, like a machine gun. But I said, if you listen for 10 minutes, you get a headache. You get a headache. Boy, the press loves her. They love her. I see these polls where I'm at 29, she's at 6, and they're saying, here's the headline, Carly is surging. I'm at 29, surging.
Mr. Viguerie, how do you digest that?
Well, you know, yes, you're right, Ed, that a high percent of conservative Republican leaders are concerned about Trump. They don't want Trump to be the nominee. But, you know, forget Trump. He's not the problem. The problem is the failed Republican leaders who do not fight, and the people are looking for a nominee as well as a House leader and a Senate leader that will fight. We're looking for somebody that's going to fight for our issues as strongly and effectively as Nancy Pelosi fights for the Democrat views and values, and Harry Reid does. So Trump is expressing the anger that the grassroots feels, and if you want to, reduce Trump's support, deal with his issues. Start going after the Republican leaders. Start providing leadership for our views, and Trump's support will dissipate.
Your thoughts on Hillary Clinton shifting on the Trans-Pacific Partnership after being Secretary of State supporting it, giving speeches supporting it, and openly on record over 40 times supporting it. Now she has reservations. Now she doesn't like it. What do you make of that?
Of course, she's running for president. She's also looking in her rearview mirror, and she sees Joe Biden there. And Biden can only run for president as Barack Obama's third term. And so she's trying to figure out how to differentiate herself from Obama and from Joe Biden. That's
a great point. Not to interrupt you, but I just want to make this clear. You think that it was more of a Biden factor for Hillary to make this move than it was a Sanders factor?
Absolutely. I don't think she sees Sanders as her main competition. It's going to be Joe Biden. So just like Obama got the nomination primarily by distinguishing himself from Hillary on the Iraq vote. And, that's the vote that caused him to get the nomination. So she wants to make sure Biden doesn't get to the left of her.
Mr. Viguerie, always a pleasure. Good to get your insight and take on this. Thanks so much.
My
we'll
pleasure,
do it again.
Bye, buddy.
You bet. The chairman of Conservative Quarterly, ConservativeHQ.com, and a man who's been around the conservative movement a long time. Very refined gentleman and has different views, certainly from mine, but we have good communication and I respect it. This is Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Hope you have a great weekend. We're off to pheasant hunting. Back with you on Monday.